go. Just gonna share a screen. Get this little thing down there and out of your way. Okay. So good morning. I just like to always start presentations with a little intro on occupational therapy because it is very misunderstood. So occupational therapy is a related service in schools. It supports participation in your fine motor skills, visual motor skills, and self-help. Also, in a big part of it is supporting children's regulation and attention in the school environment so that they can access their roles as a student and even as a friend. So we're going to look at the fit between the child, their interest, their skills that they currently have, and also about sensory processing, which we will start to discuss in a few moments. And we want those skills, the task, and the learning environment to provide the most success in them being able to participate. So we work to strengthen your skills and then adapt the environment to support their participation. So I always love this cartoon of Piglet and Pooh because it really kind of personifies what occupational therapists really seek to do. That I can't do the things I want and need to do, Piglet said, then I'll teach you, Pooh replied. And if I can't teach you, then I'll change the world around you to make it easier. And that is often what you'll see occupational therapists doing in classrooms. We may be adjusting the lighting, putting up a visual divider to minimize visual distractions, give the child different types of tools and toys that they can use at the skill level that they are currently so that they can successfully participate in their classroom and with their peers. Next, we're going to discuss sensory processing because this is one of those topics that is misunderstood, and occupational therapists have done a lot of training in and kind of supported its sensory processing skills in the classrooms. So when we think of sensory processing, it's really the term that refers to the way the nervous system receives messages from the senses and turns them into appropriate motor and behavioral responses. Whether you're biting a hamburger or riding a bicycle or reading a book, your successful completion depends on sensory processing. And when we think about that, a lot of times I like to explain it sort of in the way of baking a cake. So if you're about to bake a cake, but the eggs have gone bad and the milk is sour and you forget something, like maybe you forget a rising thing like the baking powder, then your cake is not going to rise, it's not going to be fluffy, it's not going to be tasty, so it won't be successful. So if where sensory processing is challenged in the beginning, we are not going to have the successful outcome in the activities. But just like any good baker knows that if you say you can do some substitutions, say, I don't have the buttermilk, but I could put a little bit of milk and then melt a little butter and mix it in. So there's always things that we can do to substitute and to make those changes for the children so that they can have a successful output. When we think about sensory systems, a lot of times when we were growing up, everybody said there were 5 senses. And so everybody thinks of that: vision, the hearing, the touch, the taste, and the smell. But the way occupational therapists think is that there are actually 3 more senses that we really don't discuss. Proprioception, which is body awareness that we get from our muscles, and vestibular, which is input we get from our inner ear. It tells us about balance and where we are in space. And then interoception, which is the signals we get from our internal organs. I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm hot, I'm tired. So these things are really, you can see how these things would really impact your behavior and your ability to really successfully engage in some of your activities. When we think about, this is the pyramid of learning, and when we think about the learning and how we get to that academic level, we have to think about all of those foundational skills. So things like being able, those sensory systems are really at the bottom, having your central nervous system and the way that that takes in signals from all of your senses, and how we can use that input to have more successful things like upright body position, being able to motor plan the tasks of an activity to be successful. Oh, if I want to play with this toy, I'm going to need to have my body upright in a chair. I'm going to need to be able to reach and see what I should do first, what I should do next. I need to know what kind of grasp to use to put those puzzles into that puzzle. So these are some of the ongoing. You can see how in this picture it really depicts how it's at the base of all of our learning, the sensory systems, and that we really need that accurate information to really to notice, not only to be successful in those activities, but also to recognize dangers in our environment. And a lot of our kiddos, that's really a challenge. You really need to be able to have the motor skills to hold you upright, and then to be able to visually scan and notice things that could be out of place or dangers. In early intervention, we typically assess sensory processing concerns through standardized checklists. We'll do either interviews, a parent checklist when you start, or if there are more concerns, we can look and do a sensory processing measure or a sensory profile. It really helps us get an idea of how to gauge how the child's responding to sensory input at home or in their classroom. And then we can look at, in comparison to peers, is there a definite difference, a much more, any, or are they more than others, or is it pretty much a typical response to that sensory system? When we think about the sensory systems and the senses, we want to look at different areas of need. So there are typically three different kinds. The under-responsive, that's something that usually you hear people refer to as a sensory seeker. They crave more input. And so their intervention needs to be more about giving more opportunities to that preferred input to help them calm and organize themselves during the day. Another is over-responsiveness, which some people refer to as that avoider. They are sensitive and they want to avoid inputs and they withdraw. For this, we need preparation to change their environment and for adults to really support them in a calm communication of what is about to happen so they can prepare their bodies for it. You might see us use picture schedules at this point, countdowns, visual timers to let them know what's about to happen. And also you might want to look at calming items, things like tinted glasses for the light, sound minimizing headphones if they're going into a music class maybe, or maybe even just a comfort item to help them stay calm as they're dealing with this challenging sensory input. The third area of need is really considered low registration. These are those kids that miss those sensory cues. They don't respond to the name being called. They don't notice that their face is dirty after while eating. They might not notice paint on their hands. So typically those those kiddos will need support in helping to learn the steps of the activity and to giving them more feedback about their body. We can do that a lot with using mirrors during hand washing and face washing, maybe even during snack time to get more feedback about where they are. Okay. The first of the systems, and we'll go through everything briefly, and if but there will be more detail in the slides, but I'm happy to follow up on any questions people have. Visual system is the system that helps us to interpret those the color, the shapes, the letters, and the words. It really helps make sense of the nonverbal cues and helps us track movement with our eyes to ensure that we move more safely through our environment. So then you'll see that as therapists and the teachers, we're going to try to minimize the clutter in the classroom. And we'll use things like color coding to kind of help the kids organize and visually find things. So we also look a lot at lighting, how that's impacting their vision. So do they specifically need some filters? And sometimes we can do that by dimming the lights, or at home you can do it by using tinted light bulbs. At home, there are lots of strategies for help, and you'll see a few of those on the screen right now. But we're also happy to problem solve. Your occupational therapist can problem solve specifically for your child, or I'm happy to support you at the chat. In the auditory sense is responsible for hearing. So this sense functions to help us interpret what we hear and the frequency of particular noise or noises. Not only sound, but the brain aims to make sense of any sound. So if there is background noises, that can make children anxious and have difficulty attending if they are not clear what it is. For instance, last week, there was a mess in the classroom and someone turned on a vacuum. And we had a new student, and they had not familiar with that sound, and especially in that new environment, it was very scary. So we were able to be detectives. We were able to come over. I was giving him a hug, and we walked over, and he found a space. We backed up until we could find a space that he was comfortable with, and then he watched to see what this vacuum does. And I gave him some deep pressure hugs on the side, and he put one finger in his ear, and he watched very intently as he tried to understand how those sounds went with the vacuum and what the vacuum would do. So it was a great way of, if a child is not completely overwhelmed, if you can give them the comfort, they are in the future, they are going to be calmer if they can understand what that sound goes to. Taste, and most of us do not think of taste as something that could be threatening, but to our young children especially that are new to all these experiences, they might have difficulty managing the different textures and some of the different flavors that occur, and this could cause them to be a picky eater and have some strong preferences for eating or texture. So we can look at lots of strategies about how to support those kids and just understanding maybe the patterns that occur, so we can know how to expand on their diet. So if a child is more interested in sweet foods, we can look at some of the healthier sweet foods that they can start to look at. Things like lots of things like different types of fruit, and we can look at them in different textures and temperatures, like cold, like popsicles, freezing things in popsicles, or squishing them into purees. We also have a lot of links here that are great supports for picky eating strategies at home, the Your Kids table, and also we have the link for the nationaleatingdisorder.org. There is there's great detail on how to how you can get information for your pediatrician and see if your child might have been less of a picky eater and more of a problem feeder. And there are new diagnoses in the last few years that help pediatricians get children the help that they need. And that will be listed at the link at the bottom. Olfactory is a sense that helps us differentiate lots of different odors and determine if things are dangerous or pleasurable. And it's really all about safety. So some children will respond very dramatically to different types of perfumes and scented lotions. And so in schools, we typically will avoid wearing any perfumes or colognes or scented lotions to kind of minimize the stress on our students who are not yet able to tell us how stressful that is. So some kids you'll even see children start to gag or they'll get headaches. And so we'll try to avoid those types of things. But when it is possible, we will engage these kids by in using calming scents when possible, like lavender and vanilla and geranium in lotions or essential oils. We usually try to avoid putting anything on a child at school, but that's something that you can discuss with your pediatrician for home. So we'll do things like have a scented bean bag, and the kids can explore the different scents. And they'll even have scented bean bags now that you can put inside your stuffed animals for calming, for bedtime, things like lavender scents, bean bags, or lavender sprays. Some children we've even had where they can be overwhelmed by other smells. So we put a little wristband on their hand and give them a scent that they're comfortable with. Sometimes we really just use like vanilla cooking oil, a little dab of that on a sweatband. If the child enjoys it, we've seen them use that as a calming routine if they get overwhelmed by another sense. For instance, we had a child that would get very stressed by the noise and even to the point where they had trouble getting their headphones on. So we would give them this option first, and they would smell it, calm down, and then they'd be able to put their headphones on, and then they could move into the busy class. So there's lots of ways where, just like you're having a bad day, it's not necessarily one thing that is bothering you. You'll start to see that your shoulders are getting tense, and you're having trouble focusing. And we can kind of start to dictate what things impacted this. Was it really just the smell, or was it that stressful ride I had in traffic? Was it the loud noise? Was it the people beeping at me? All of these things can add together and cause us a lot of additional stress where we wouldn't normally be sensitive to a smell, but we've had a very stressful sound day. Our muscles are tight, and so we can sort of over respond to just that it's sort of the last straw. And so we can see that, doing things a little bit at a time, providing these small little changes in the child's experience can help to calm us. Everyone, as adults, we know that sometimes people can't function without their morning coffee or their hot shower in the morning or their run. So everybody slowly makes those changes as adults, as we get to be more in control of our life. But children do not know that they have these choices or these options yet. So we're going to start providing them with them. And then this is the tactile system, the things that we touch, and that provide us deep pressure. It lets us know about if things are painful, if they're safe. And this can impact a lot of our students engaging in activities. If they misinterpret like a light touch as negative or dangerous. So you'll see those kids where some people love to be tickled, and some people tickling is actually very threatening. It makes us so stressed that we can't focus. So if we think about that tickling as a light touch, that light touch might also come from a tag on a shirt. It might also come from someone that's standing too close to me when I'm standing in line. So these types of things can make us anxious, and we may respond with a fight or flight response and pull away. So if you did not see what happened right before that, you might not understand. Or if you're not thinking, it is the light touch that my child is responding to. So, they might drop down or refuse to put on a shirt. If we don't judge them and say, oh no, I'm like, why are they giving me such a hard time? If we think our child is having a hard time right now, and I can be curious and be a detective and find out what is the thing that is impacting them. And a lot of times with our friends, especially at this young age, their sensory systems are still very overwhelming, and they are not able to communicate clearly the things that are frustrating them. But we can make small changes to help them through their day. You'll see a lot of times that if you go into our classrooms, there's lots of calming squeeze toys and fidgets that kids can get their deep pressure by, and using that calming deep pressure helps to bring down their stress level, and overwhelms the light touch, because that deep pressure, those big calming hugs, when we were swaddling our babies, when we're giving them big, deep hugs, all of these things are calming the muscles and sending calming signals to our nervous system to help us relax and start to regulate. And this is what we do for our kids in the classroom every day. Our kids will come over, ask for a squeeze, and we'll be giving them hand squeezes. We can ask for hugs. If we're going to do something messy, I might have a towel of a container of wipes or paper towels right there, so the child doesn't need to leave the area. If they're upset that something is on their shirt or something is on their arm, they can feel comfortable that if they explore it, that they're also going to be able to do it safely. We'll be able to wash their hands whenever they request. That creates not only a safer area to start to explore and learn, but also it creates trust between you and the child. So this is proprioception. This is not as well known, but it's the sense that helps us with our body awareness to know where our body is in space. So we actually have a little sensors called proprioceptors in our muscles and our joints and in our tendons. And when we move our body, it lets us know where we are and where our body is. So we understand that our feet are on the floor, that our bottom is in a chair. For some of our friends, these things do not come as easily, and they need a lot more input. So what we'll see is in class, before we ask them to sit, you might see a lot of our friends jumping on a trampoline. You might see them jumping over to the circle time area so that they can get a lot of feedback about their muscles before we ask them to sit. And when they are sitting, we might choose a chair that's more supportive for them, that gives them more feedback, like chairs with arms. So bodies don't slide off the side. We might give them a rocking chair that provides them with a little movement during that, or put a little cushion in their chair. You'll see those types of activities. And I'm sure that you've noticed this at home too, that sometimes it's a lot easier for our students to sit and focus on something like a book or like a toy if they're sitting in your laps and getting that deep pressure, that's those squeezes or that hugs to make them feel comfortable. But we can also help them be more successful in their activities and stay for longer at their learning activities by including other things like putty, like pegs, things that would also give our hands that deep pressure for calming too. So there are ways that if we're noticing that they're seeking, that they need this input, we can include that into that learning activity and help them to be more successful. And we can also build their self-esteem by understanding that they can be, by giving them good feedback about being helpers and helper jobs. So for instance, we might see that our friend needs to move around right now. Maybe they're the person that should be handing out the musical, they should be carrying the heavy box and helping the teacher hand out the musical instruments to their friends. There's lots of little helper activities that your kids can do at home too. Things like, pushing the basket full of clothes across the room to help you out, lifting some of the safer groceries so that you can put them away. These are all great helper jobs where they can feel good that they were helping their family, but also get that input to that their body needs to regulate. Is there a question? So the next is the vestibular system, and that is that's a sense that detects movement from your inner ear. It gives us feedback about where we are in space, and it really works closely with our hearing and also our vision to kind of help us with our balance and our visual attention to tasks. So when we see our kiddos that are having difficulty with this vestibular input, we'll see that they might be a little bit clumsy, or they also might go to the extremes where they are doing that sensory seeking when it comes to swinging all the time, dancing all the time, moving and jumping. Our kiddos that really need to get additional input to that vestibular system so that they can really start to organize their bodies. And you'll see us do things like building in those cushions during their seated activities, and also doing some calming things through the day before we work. Things like yoga, like like turning your head down for a downward dog, using a scooter board so that they can get some nice calming linear movement. So when we think about that movement, if we're going in like a circle or spinning, that's actually very overstimulating. So if we are doing that, we're trying to wake up the sensory systems. But if we want to calm the system down, we're going to go back to thinking about rocking that baby in the rocking chair, doing some nice linear movements. So pushing your child on a swing just in a straight line. So it depends on what is your goal and what helps your child to regulate themselves. The last eighth sense is interoception. And it really helps you to feel what's going on inside of your body. It helps us to act upon things like our hunger, our thirst, if we are having pain, if the temperature is not correct, if we're too cold or too hot, or if we need to use the bathroom. So it really gives us those good signals. And these signals are really the first step to starting to understand the things we need to keep our bodies safe and to understand our emotions. Some of the first things our kiddos at a preschool level and those toddler levels learn is I'm hungry or I'm hurt. and being able to act on those appropriately helps us to regulate ourselves and control our emotions. So later on, you probably know you connect that feeling with that growling belly is that you're hungry. And these things for some people come very naturally, but for other people, we need to start to connect those with routines. So always eating at the same time, always trying to take the child to the toilet or changing their pull up at the same time. They start to make the connections between that feeling in my stomach means I'm hungry and I need to eat. You know, um, this pressure in my abdomen, that means that I need to go and use the toilet, or or this wetness in my pull-up means that I peed and I need to get changed to feel more comfortable. So this is really a foundational skill for really understanding our emotions. So when we look at our kiddos throughout the day, everyone needs to adjust their level of arousal to kind of match the environment and the task. And this adjusting is sometimes called regulation. That's your ability to match the task. So if I'm really sleepy, I'm not going to be able to focus on my call at work. If I'm very stressed and agitated, I'm not going to be able to join in and communicate during circle time. So there's lots of different levels, and we're also trying to come to the just right level, you know. So for our kiddos, we are always trying to see, does that child need more movement? Does that child need more physical comfort? You know, so what types of things will help that child to participate with us successfully? And when we think about that regulation, that ability to the ability to match your body to the activity that's at hand, because if we're too tired, that's not a good time. We're not going to be successful on our playground in the playground. So we really need to kind of build up these activities. But the way that children learn this is really through the adults in their life. So when their storm meets our calm, co-regulation occurs. So sometimes our kids don't understand what's going on with their body. They're going to be very stressed. It's up to us to try to stay calm, to help them work through that, help them be curious and say, I'm like, oh, they're scratching at their neck. This is a new shirt. Oh, there's a tag there. I'm like, how can I be the detective and help them figure it out and help them help them calm. So a lot of times, you know, your child and the best way to the things that they enjoy. Maybe they're big huggers. Maybe they need a little bit of time in a quiet area with a dim light to calm down, to regulate so that they can move on and start to participate. These are things that are important for us to learn, and you really do have to be a detective, but you don't have to do it alone. There's a whole team here at your school, either through Easter Seals or through the IU, that is happy to help. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. I just wanted to give an example of some of the strategies that occupational therapists will use. We tend to use things called a sensory diet at times, which is a way of incorporating those different movements or calming times during their day to help keep them regulated so that they can participate at their maximum level. So we can look at here the differences in maybe making sure that when they come in off the school bus, they get to go on the trampoline and jump. They get to have something in their snack that is calming or alerting if it needs to be at that time, that they have access to things like noise minimizing earphones if they need it. that they have access to using musical instruments if they need them. Looking at the ability to explore explore tactily to calm themselves down. We have lots of sensory boxes here. We like to call it a sensory bin library. And we'll take out if the child will ask for a sensory bin, or we'll have it as an option, and we'll bring them out and the kids can choose that to kind of calm themselves if there's a lot of other things going on in the room. Maybe another child is upset and they need a way to calm themselves. If they do that tactily, we'll either offer them a fidget or offer them a sensory bin as a time to calm down. Looking at that vestibular. So this is a great thing to build into the day. It could be something simple like bouncing on the ball. It could be something like playing Ring Around the Rosie with your friends in class. So it doesn't always need to be individually. Sometimes we can support them by having them participate in lots of the group activities and just including them in those activities. Also in the visual, looking at, sunglasses, maybe a baseball cap to kind of minimize some of those lights the overwhelming light that comes in. Or sometimes we just need a calming light. So you'll see lots of people that enjoy having fish tanks at home. You'll see them in lots of doctor's offices and dentist offices. That's very soothing, calm visual. And we can also mimic that with some of our visual fidgets, things like oil timers that you'll watch them move slowly through drip, like a colored oil will drip slowly, and it helps them with that feedback. You will see that we can include lots of activities throughout the day. But we do want to also be clear that there are also times where we really need to pull back some of that stimulus. Sometimes they just need a quiet area, a cozy area. And we will try to create that. At Easter Seals, in every class, we have a calm down area, which has a sound minimizing round area and something soft like beanbag chairs and things for them to choose in that area that might be calming. It could be some calming music, could be some stuffed animals, or for some kids, or fidgets, or for some kids, they even prefer to be reading books or looking at books at that time. This is an example of what a sensory diet would look like. Some of the things you could do at home, things like the tactile would be to kind of give the kids some deep pressure if they're feeling very sensitive to a lot of the outside tactile. Sometimes even the wind can really impact some of our friends, and being able to help them with the deep pressure hugs is very supportive. In the vision aspect, it's not only that we worry about the things that they're sensitive to, but things that draw them in. We want to look at the types of activities that draw them to an activity and to participating. So we may use toys that light up, or toys with moving parts in our group play. If we are trying to work on motor skills, gross motor skills, maybe during obstacle course, we might have give the kids flashlights and dim the overhead lights, so we can have them more motivated to try out more challenging gross motor activities at the same time that they're challenging their visual skills. So this is just a simple example of things, the way that things you might do at home to change. If your child needs a little more deep pressure, they might be drinking through a milkshake through a straw in the morning, or eating something chewy like a bagel or sourdough. When it's time to get dressed, because that's challenging for a child, you might want to include a hand massage or a foot massage, or do big squeezes and with her pillows or a beanbag before she's getting dressed, or as she's getting dressed. When you're looking at that arrival at school, we talked before about some kids need that time to jump. Some kids also need a quiet time in the corner, to read a book, to kind of come to the adjustment from moving to a quiet home to a busy classroom. So looking at these types of things can be included in the child's day. Things at school we typically do will be, giving those kids opportunities to get that deep pressure. This one is completing like a resistance band, like a lots of pulling activities with a teaching assistant at set times during their day. When they arrive at home, we might want to see it's a big transition from home, so maybe they do need a quiet time. Maybe it needs to be less things going on in the house, as they're coming through, and then as they start to adjust more, that's a time for more activity. And then looking at bedtime, it might be a good time for a child to get massage before they go to bed, or realize how your voice could be impacting their regulation. And so using a quieter voice, dimming some light to prepare their bodies for bed, because our children are still getting used to routines, and these routines are telling their bodies, that it's time to start to wind down. But they really depend a lot on us, again, the calm and the storm, and also those environmental changes to really help support them. So, see, I'm going to stop my share right now, and I also will stop the recording.